Okay, hello, good evening. It's a little bit later than I'm used to because I didn't start streaming until later. Good evening, guys. Hello. Um, I'm just doing a little bit later stream tonight. My wife is upstairs playing D&D with friends, so I figured I'd come down here and do some work. This is about as far as I got on Mr. Garrius. Because I definitely worked on him a bit while I was not streaming, because I just did not have the energy to do it. But I'm really liking how he's turning out. I'll have to do a little bit more work and see how this continues to go. But so far, I think he's looking pretty darn good. So we're going to try and clean up some of the details, hit some extra spots that I hadn't been able to hit yet. Just try and prettify up this proxy model, right? So let's go ahead and get to it. I think the first thing I'm going to want to work on with him is probably to clean up some of the black and silver spots on him. And I don't really want to get silver paint particles on my wet palette, so I'm just going to put some in the dry palette, and we're going to very delicately get those sections painted on, because when I first worked on him, it was very much a block it all in, worry about the details later. But he's pretty clearly past that point now, so I can afford to be a lot more precise with a brush, which is going to help with making him look a whole lot cleaner, because something I've been traditionally very bad at is hitting the detail. Like, I tend to block it in really hard and just kind of let some of the colors bleed together. And I've noticed that in general it makes my work just look sloppy. So today I'm going to focus on not letting it look sloppy. I am going to do what I can to make this be as clean and pretty a paint job as I can manage. Though all this is making me do is really want a true non-proxied Evander Garrius model, because this one is just way too cool. And I want to emphasize, this lad is a proxy. He is not the real thing. I found him on a third-party system, and I am never going to try and pass him off as the real deal. So hopefully, someday, I will have the money with which to buy a real Evander Garrius, and then I can paint him in sub-assemblies like a lunatic, make him look absolutely beautiful. Right? That's the goal. That's endgame with this model. This is purely a practice model on getting a ton of small details and painting it to as high a standard as I can before I get the real thing and get a chance to really go to town with it, right? And so far, I'm pretty happy with how it's turning out. I definitely wish I hadn't attached some parts of it that I did, but you know, can't change that now, so I'm just kind of working with what I've got. But unfortunately, you're probably not going to see a whole lot of extreme sweeping detail work done, because I'm beyond that point, and everything I'm doing is very tiny, very precise. So hopefully, you'll be able to appreciate that aspect. And hopefully, with the lighting that I have, I'll be able to meet and match all of this little detail work. Okay. Go ahead. Continue to hit that. And I think that will do. Now, he's got all of this long cord all over him, which I think is just supposed to signify his rank. I think it's a cord of office. And so what I think I'm going to do with that is the original color is supposed to be like a deep red. And so that's probably what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint it all black or a dark brown. And then I'm going to just add a red on top of it and work my way up to like a very warm orange. And that might allow me to have some really nice deep contrast going on there. First, I've got these studs I've got to paint on his his cataphracti plate. This is not Mark III. This is pure cataphracti plate. Oops, oh no. Why'd that happen? It looks like the video crapped out on me. Give me a second. Let's see what's going on here. Yeah, it definitely did that. So, do that and hope that it kicks back over. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the video capture device for a second. Inactive? You're not inactive. Now you're active. But it's not showing up on Camo Studio. What's going on, Camo Studio? Connect the device. Looking for a device. I think Camo just actually crapped out on me. So we're going to go ahead and close out of Camo Studio real quick. And I'm going to see what I can do. Quit Camo Studio, please. Yeah, it just really messed up. And now I guess what I'm going to do is I'm going to reopen Camo Studio and let's hope that it decides to work. I don't know why, but ever since Camo Studio updated, I've been having increasing problems with its stability. And to be honest, it's really frustrating. Okay, that's working. Connect on the device. It found my phone. Let's do that. There's my hand. Testing, testing. It looks like it's all working. Video capture device. Okay, let's see if it's going to work for me now. Yep, we are back. Back in business. Back in action. So, what I need to work on right now, I think, yeah, see some of these spots I just was not able to hit very well because I was using a fat brush that didn't exactly have a whole lot of range to it. So I'm going back and doing what I can to fix these spots or to hit spots that I otherwise didn't hit, like these studs. And hopefully they'll look okay. Because what's going to happen with the studs is I'm just going to hit them with a metallic paint after I finish putting on these shadows. I'll be putting on this black base as like a shadow color. Let's see if I can hit this stud without hitting the... yeah, without hitting the rope over top of it. That'll do. I think those will read fine. Next thing I need to do, I guess, is hit this trim all around his leg. Now, I don't remember what color it was on the model sheet, but for me, it's going to be black, because the black trim is really going to break up a lot of the yellow. So that's kind of what I'm working with right now. So let's see, can I hit that little bit bob right there? It looks like... there we go. What else do I need to do? Possibly in there to clean that up. A little bit in there to clean that up. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. A little bit on top because there's a lot of yellow there being revealed, but I think that's about all I can do. That looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. I can see a little bit of his body glove down there, so we'll go ahead and hit that as well. And this is where having the ultra fine tip of this Winsor & Newton comes in handy. But yeah, he's looking pretty okay. As mentioned previously, the details is where I kind of get stuck in and where I kind of get a little lazy. So I'm trying my best to hit as much of the details as I can on this guy. I think, though, Oh, he's got a sleeve there that I can go ahead and hit, so let's get that fringe as well. Got a lot of like silver metallic trim on him, so that means it needs to be based in this black and then gone back over with metallic, which is going to look really good. At least I think so. Okay, and now that I'm done with the nice brush, because I don't want to ruin that brush with the metal, we're going to go ahead and go back to a metallic paint. Let's go ahead and get some gunmetal out. Now, to be honest, I was actually planning on staying relatively quiet this stream and just letting the painting do the talking. But I suppose it's just my nature. I gotta say things. So let's hit this again, because it got covered in the black paint and we want this silver to really pop. And same here, we want this to be a much stronger silver than it was, because this is a very strong silver. I'm going to use the back of the brush, so I'm only hitting the spots that need it. Hopefully the camera's still working. Yep, the camera is still working. Same thing here. This is one of the few good uses for a curl brush that I can think of, is that if you do it right, it just barely hits flat on the surface. And therefore, you can do a pretty decent job of hitting only the spots you want to hit. There's a lot less of a chance of the paint ending up splashing onto other things. I say as the paint ends up splashing onto other things, but you get the drift. You get the idea. What else needs to be got? Oh, he's still got more silver studs. So if your brush does start curling like this because it has synthetic bristles, you can kind of stop using it as your main paintbrush and start using it in more effective ways. Comme ça. This needs to be given a slightly stronger silver on it. That can be given a stronger silver. That can be given a stronger silver. Go ahead and hit that very gently. And that's looking pretty good. Unfortunately, that ended up getting a little scuffed up, but that's okay. I'm not overly worried about that. There we go there. And let's hit this again. Now, the one thing that I don't think I'm going to spend a whole lot of time on is that he has an incredible amount of, like, stud work on his armor, like all over the back legs and everything. I don't really see a purpose in hitting that, so I'm just going to leave it be. And instead, I'm going to focus in on other areas. Oh, he's got these lightning bolts too. Those would be perfectly fine to hit. I can just barely do a little bit of a dusting there. And I think these are supposed to be like metallic clasps that are going to hold his bear pelt in place. So I think kind of the same thing. I'm going to gently get some of that paint on there. Hopefully this will all look okay when I'm done. Actually, let's hit this a little better. This can go ahead and get that full coat. Same thing here. You can kind of see it made out. I don't know if you really can on there, but there's definitely a little roll that's kind of being concealed by the fur, which is fine. Go ahead and hit it all the way around. And actually, going back to the bear pelt, it reminded me there are some sections I still need to hit. These claws are not looking very good. So I think I'm going to go back and hit the claws with a slightly better coat of black. Will hopefully differentiate it enough away from the mess that I've made. So yeah, we got this globby bit right here. That does not look clean. That one too. This is just kind of spilling into that crevice, so we'll go ahead and clean that up. These ones actually ended up looking okay, so I think we'll keep those there. But the ones over here just became kind of nondescript, and I think that was an issue with the printing. So what I can do after doing this is I can go back over with the claw color, which I think I ended up using pale sand, and I really should have used a buff, which is more of a khaki color. And that will do a better job at giving me that good earthy color of like bone and nail. So let's see if I can hit that now. And get a slightly more distinct clear color out of it. And what I can also do is I can use like a dark brown closer to the closer to where it meets the bare fur, and that will better differentiate it. Because right now you can see we've got some weird coloring going on there. That'll be fine. That'll be very easily fixable. So same thing here. No, I don't even need to do that. I can just use a brown wash. That'll cover all that up very nicely. And since it's on a bear cloak, no one's really going to notice. And no one's really going to care. So we'll let that dry. And yeah, dude's looking pretty good. I'm going to have to do this in a little bit. And I think I'm just going to go ahead and do a really strong red. Though you are getting to see one of the deficiencies of like lesser 3D prints. And I don't want to say that to denigrate the sculptor who took this, because they actually did a pretty darn good job cleaning it up. But I'm pretty sure that this print came from a 3D scan that was then cleaned up. And there was probably supposed to be a greater distinction between the cape and the bear pelt, or whatever beast it's supposed to be. But it's really difficult to tell, simply because it all just kind of meshes together, right? And while that's acceptable for proxy, it definitely shows that it is proxy. And I guess that's what you want, right? You don't want to pass off your model as if it's a legitimate Games Workshop model. That might have gone a little bit too deep into that boundary there, but that's fine. There we go. Again, this is all about cleanup and details, because otherwise we're going to have some ugly splotches that are going to look really, really bad on the model. So let's go ahead and cross that out. Clean off the brush. Use another inferior brush to clean up the mess I just made. See, I'm probably just going to have to, yep, I'm just going to wipe that all away. That's fine. Wipe it all away. Try again later. Unfortunately, that came out looking like a wash. There we go. So I'll give that a minute to dry, and then I'll come back later and try and hit that splotch again. Okay, next thing is probably actually going to be this chords of service, which will not be super difficult to do. I'm just going to mix some brown and black to make the deep shade. Actually, that's probably enough black. And then I will use a dark red, slowly build up from there. Okay, so let's mix these colors together. A little bit of you. And this is where having a palette cam would be lovely, but unfortunately that's not something I own right now. Okay, mix in the dark brown. There we go. Hopefully that's dark and brown enough. Yeah, that looks like it'll be okay. And thankfully, it looks like I watered it down enough. And I've switched back to my bent-tipped Citadel brush, because it's allowing me to kind of go over the roll that is the rope without really hitting anything else, hopefully. Of course, in my case, I need a lot of precision because I probably did this out of order, but I'm going to try my best here. Wait a minute. No, that's part of the cord. Okay, that's the tassel. I was like, did I forget to do a part of the skirt? I don't remember what it's called. It's a terrouge, something like that. But yeah, this is just going to be a nice dark brown. And then it will be built back up. There we go. And yeah, that's super noticeably, very super noticeably a good brown. A good dark shadowy brown is what we want. Okay, and then that. And unfortunately, this is where it's all gonna fall apart because I have no clue whether I'm hitting this accurately, whether I'm doing this cleanly. All I can kind of do, because of that very heavy cape in the way, is pray. And so let this be a lesson that as enthusiastic as you are to put a model together, make sure to not cover up spots that you are trying to paint. There's a pretty good adage in painting that if you can't see it, you don't need to paint it. But unfortunately, there's enough of the rope visible from other angles that I would feel remiss if I didn't try painting the rope. So that is what I'm going to do. And just hope that my hand is deft enough that I can hit it without hitting a whole lot of other things. Now it looks like it turned out pretty okay, actually. Okay, there we go. And it definitely adds some nice color to him, too. Because that's one thing this model does need a little bit more, is some more fun color to it. Now, I think I need more black, so I can go back to try and hit that part of the cape that I accidentally muffed up. So let's get just a smidge more black. Use the nice brush. And I don't even know if you can see it on here. Yeah, that little splotch right there. Let's see if I can hit it this time without getting it all over the nicer lining. There we go. And I'm just going to leave that to rest forever. Okay, now this next spot with the ropes, I'm actually going to do with the other brush, with the Winsor & Newton. And we're going to see how that looks. Actually, while I'm at it, while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to go ahead and hit the bear claws, the beast claws, with a little bit of Agrax Earthshade, which will hopefully dirty them up. Yeah, just like that. And kind of fill in any gaps that I might have not hit effectively. And get rid of some of that, like, contrasty brightness that's happening. And lo and behold, that's exactly what it did, right? Looks like I missed a spot down there too, so I can go ahead and hit that with black. And it should be okay. Because all I need to do is kind of get rid of that little yellow splotch. How did I miss that even? Do that again here. And there we go. That little bit of mistake is gone. Okay. Now I actually want to use the wet palette portion of the wet palette, so that's what's going to happen next. Take that part off. I guess I'll put it in here for right now. We're going to need some red, we're going to need some orange. Eventually we might even go up to a yellow, who knows. Let's see what we can do here. Okay, yeah, we're actually going to use a decent amount of red because I'm also going to do his cloak with a deep red. Let's work some of that in. And now we have this, and my attention is going to be gone for a minute while I focus on his cord of office, I guess. Not sure what else to call this. Yep, all I'm gonna do is very fastidiously get each one of these little ridges that signify the cord, and hopefully that will convey a sense of shadow. Just like that. Go ahead and hit that again. Well, not hit that again. Let's go ahead and get some more of it. Thankfully, because they gave these very deep ridges, I can kind of cheat a little. Right, if I go almost in like a dry brushy motion, it will catch a lot of the ribs of the rope. And we'll do a pretty good job of conveying as a red. This one might be a little different because there's a lot of more flat rope here. But if I only hit the top spot, it will definitely help it lean towards a red top. So there we go. And now I can go back and do it again, and it will build the color up even more. So let's give that a try. Yep. Exactly what I hoped. It's definitely coming in brighter. Thankfully, there's just enough detail in this model for this to work. Same thing alongside here. Same thing alongside there. Oh, cool. Spam. Everyone loves spam. I got a text from Fantuan Delivery. I don't know what it read, but it was offering like a 15% something or other. Which I'm assuming is, we'll take 15% of your bank account if you click on this link. Okay. So the red is done. Obviously, it was a very minor detail. But it definitely does help a little bit to break up the massive amount of yellow on the guy. So now, we're going to bump it up to an orange. And it's in a very tiny amount, but hopefully by bumping up the orange, that'll give us a really nice kind of highlight on top of the red. And it will look more like light play on this model. So here we go. Kind of the same thing. We're going to go even narrower with our brush. And just hit the very, very tops. And so you can kind of see, I don't know if you can actually make it out on the screen, but you can definitely see that there's now a brighter spot at the very top of a lot of this. It does a pretty good job of giving it more of a lighted look. Now, unfortunately, orange is not a particularly dense color, so it's going to take a few more coats to get it. Hey, Canvastrophe. What a great name. I hope I didn't slaughter it too badly. I don't have my glasses on right now because I'm very nearsighted, So, I'm trying my best here. My name is Ben Repaints. I paint the Warhams models, at least to the best of my ability. This one is not the actual... Oh, cool, fantastic. It's not the actual Evander Garrius. It is a proxy that I found that I'm going to paint in anticipation of getting the real one. But right now I'm just trying to give his word of office, I guess, a little bit more pop to it than just a red. And I think that turned out pretty okay. So I'm just kind of doing the detail work with him right now. I'm probably gonna have to go back and do some touch-up on his legs and whatnot, the lines. But I really like this model. I think it's a neat model. I'm having a lot of fun painting it. But I dread the cloak. There's so much going on there. And I suppose I should hit his little scroll too. And then I guess I should go ahead and do the dead guy underneath him. But yeah, how's it going? How are you doing? It's about 8 o'clock where I am, so normally I stream from about 4 o'clock to, or 4:30 to 6, my time, but I had a very late go of it today, and so now I'm just trying to get a little stream in before bedtime. And yeah, you can definitely tell that this is not a true sculpt given how soft the details are on this bear cloak. You can see it pretty clearly, like the Imperial Fist emblem is very kind of like molded in. It's not a super great look, but that kind of is what's encouraging me to buy the real deal. Because while I am having a lot of fun painting this model, I would much prefer painting the plastic. So we're going to go ahead and just try and gently fill in all of this with a very watered down red, so I kind of block in my colors. And then I can fill it in with increasing layers of red to give it some actual highlight. And that way there will be volume to the cloak. I don't know, I consider myself to be a fairly middling painter, but I am definitely trying all sorts of strategies to do fun things with it. I just got into streaming, but I painted the art category because you only have D&D minis. And there's nothing wrong with that. If I hadn't been so hard into Warhammer, that would basically be what I'm doing too. I do have some of those. I do some streams where I'm not painting. Oh man, I shouldn't have done that. You can see right there that I've accidentally pushed around too much of it. Now it's exposed. Where I paint non-Warhammer minis. Like right now, my friends and I have gotten into a game called Turnip 28, which is another tabletop skirmish game. And you basically kit bash models out of like Napoleonic era soldiers and that era, and you make them look all grubby and gross. And so that's clearly not Warhammer. So for a little while, I was painting over on the art category. And the world is supposed to be like grimdark future, but dirty and 18th century. And so I found these really cool models of what were supposed to be Terry Pratchett's Night Watch, called Guards, Guards, Guards. And the only reason I bought them initially was because it came with 2 geese that were in like breastplates and helmets, and I thought that was very funny. But I ended up really loving the models. So I painted them all on stream. And if you give me a second, I can show you some. If I think they're neat. Okay. They're made entirely out of pewter. And so that just made me incredibly happy, because I don't get a chance to paint pewter models very often. But like, that's what it looks like. And I didn't realize how close I actually got to the actual Night Watch colors. And so in this case, I just made it look like, you know, big chunks of weeds and underbrush was growing out of them. And yeah, no, I had a lot of fun painting these guys. They're some of my favorite models I painted. They have so much personality, they've got so much character to them. And I just think that's super neato. They came with this giant ogre, which I think is supposed to be Sergeant Detritus. And you can see, like, his clothes barely fit him. He's got just cobbled together pieces of clothing on him. These are just good looking models. I love them to death. And of course, stars of the show. We got this lovely lad right here. We discussed pewter models this afternoon on my stream. Very neat. What was your opinion on them? I think they have their place. You know what I mean? If only there were more. Yeah. I can understand why they got away from it because, you know, the sculpting process cannot be easy. And they're definitely a lot more fragile in some ways. And here's the goose. I feel like this is the goose from Untitled Goose Game right here. But, I really love the weight substance they have to them. That's kind of why I was so happy to paint these guys. Like, look at this guy. He himself is kind of dopey looking, but, I mean, look at that thing he's got in his hand. I guess it's a dog? I don't really know, but I also don't care. It's just so darn charming, right? So, those are what I was painting when I was painting over at the art stream. Eventually, I'll get back to doing that kind of stuff, but right now, Evander Garrius is calling my name. So, I'm going to keep painting him. Wow, that red turned out pretty good for one sloppy pass. Let's go ahead and hit it again and try and cover up some of my mistakes, because there's definitely some thinning spots in here that I could fix. And then I think I'm going to cheap out, and I'm just going to use metallic paint for the trim. And that should do a pretty darn good job of making this whole cape pop. And I'm working to get more pieces for my Turnip 28 army, but this is what I've got so far. Yeah, let's try and be very careful here. I kind of like that black as the circular rim for the Imperial Fist logo, so I'm going to try and leave that as best I can. But everything else is pretty much fair game. Now, thankfully, painting this base black did a really good job of giving me a dark shade to work out of, or a dark base to work out of, so all I've really got to do is continue to build this up with more concentrations of red on the more visible spots, and eventually it will kind of do a lot of the work for me. See, I'm hoping to make it the other flip. I have a wish list from Throne on my page. Someone suggested I use it, and perhaps future me will get some combat patrol kits and can start in the Warhammer category. I feel Warhammer models have so much better detail than WizKids D&D figs. They really do, and I find it almost insulting that WizKids charges as much as they do for their kits when you, I guess it's because of the bulk thing, but when you break it down price per model, Warhammer models tend to be around the same price, but the quality of them is just so much better. I've been streaming in the Warhammer category for a few, not like 6 months now, and I've had access to a lot, and I mean a lot of Warhammer models. And I've mainly stayed with like Space Marines and whatnot, but the pricing on them and the level of detail is just really, really good. I don't want to say unparalleled, because there are plenty of other model makers that do absolutely stunning work. But, yeah, they're definitely... I definitely feel like I'm getting more bang for my buck when I buy a squad of Space Marines versus if I were to spend an equivalent amount of money on WizKids models. And I don't want to say that derisively to WizKids either, because their models are definitely nice. They're just not, you know, as detailed. And actually, I can give you a pretty good example. Give me a second. I've got some with me right here. This guy, I did non-metallic metal. So I painted him so that he doesn't have any metal paint on him, but I tried to shade him so he looks metallic. And even though they're decent models, just cost ratio is bad. Exactly. But I mean, like, just look at the amount of detail in him, even, you know, disregarding the paint job. He's just got so much going on with his armor, with the inlays, with his helmet. You know, there's just a lot going on here. And because of it, I feel like I'm getting a much better deal. And I think a set of 5 of these was $60. Which is quite a bit, don't get me wrong. That's basically $12 a model, but when you look at it, they're just tremendously, tremendously detailed. And with regular Space Marines, as another example, it's 60 for 10, so you're getting 10 models a kit. And, you know, their kits end up looking like this. This guy's got some 3D printing going on, but, like, the fist is his, the arm is his, the head and the shoulder are 3D printed. But there's just so much more detail, and so much more precise detail. Space Marines, right? Just kind of talking about your the Baylor you're painting was like $15, so much more expensive than that single guy. Exactly. That's I have opinions. Some of them good, some of them absolute trash. But you can definitely get a lot of bang for your buck with 40K models, especially the Warhammer Fantasy and Age of Sigmar stuff. I'll also argue though, some of them are just ridiculously costed. Character models are like $35 minimum, and so you're spending through the nose to get the really special character models, even if they are not any bigger. Like part of the reason why I have this print of Evander Garrius and not the real Evander Garrius is because he's a Forge World model, which means he's resin, and he would cost, I think, $55 for me to purchase. So that's $55 for the legit version of this model. And for me, it's worth it because I really like the model and I want to paint it, but I could definitely see why people would look at that and go, no way, that's way too much. And I mean, let me see, do I have a D? Let's like a paint thing next to him. He's not a big model, right? But at that point, you're getting pretty deep into the hobby space, and you're really kind of searching for super nice models to paint, right? So I'm not sure if I would really consider that to be a fair equivalent to, you were gifting a Ragnar model, but you already painted it. I mean, that's pretty fair too. Yeah, Ragnar is another character model that definitely costs. But I mean, there's also the thing that Games Workshop does where they bundle their models with, like you said, combat patrols and with starter boxes. So you can definitely spend less and get pretty decent discounts on the models. There are just certain specialty ones like this guy that you're going to have to pay through the nose for. Or, you know, 3D print. So my hope is, once I have some spending money, I can go ahead and buy this guy and do an absolutely stunning job painting. He's spendy and same size as a Grunt Space Marine? Yeah, exactly. I mean, in-game, his stat block is definitely better, and if you look at the level of detail on him, he's definitely got a lot more going on, but he's still, you know, very, very expensive. And that's kind of unfortunate, but that's always been one of the biggest criticisms of Games Workshop, is that they do charge through the nose for some of their more quote-unquote premium models. So it all depends on exactly what you want to get out of it. If you're just wanting to paint some cool models, then yeah, buy the box sets, like the combat patrols, because that's, and the starter sets, because that's where you're going to save money. Usually there's like a good 30 to 40% discount versus if you were to buy the models by themselves. Like, actually, they just released their 10th edition starter box. You're saving up for the Tyranid Combat Patrol. That is a good one. What you could do is, especially if you're interested in starting the game and you have a friend who might be interested, is you and a friend could split the mid-sized starter box. Because I think that thing is like $160, which is, my goodness, a lot. But it has both the Space Marines and the Tyranid Combat Patrol. Oh, you're talking about the old Tyranid Combat Patrol. The new one that came out with the new release of the new edition has 20 gaunts, not 30. And it has a much better variety of units versus the old Tyranid Combat Patrol. And to be honest, with the gaunts, unless you really, really want to do a good job, they kind of lend themselves to be painted quickly. So you're not going to be in too much trouble if you decide to to paint those pretty handily, and then focus on the bigger character units, because that's generally what people do. Yeah, with the release of 10th edition that happened in June, they released new starter sets and new combat patrols. So, actually, let me see if I can find it real quick online. They replaced the combat patrol Space Marines, and they replaced the combat patrol Tyranids on the website, and with the new starter kit. So, combat patrol army in a box. Let me see if I can find it for you. Yeah, they don't even have it boxed yet, which makes sense, I guess. Combat Patrol Army Box. Let's get rid of that selection. There's Combat Patrol Tyranids. So, where'd it go? Window capture. Window capture? Oh, yeah, that's not going to work. There we go. Window capture. And then, boop, there we go. And I'll move this over for you. So this is the new one, and all of these models are brandy new. They just released in June, and so they have new plastic miniatures. It's obviously not as much because it's trying to get away from being, you know, a huge amount of mooks into a more varied list. But you can see you've got Von Ryan's Leapers over here, which are a new model. You've got the Psychophage, which is a great centerpiece model. Looks really cool. You've got what are called Barbgaunts, which are like artillery fire guys. It's 20 Termagants with 2 Ripper Swarms, and then a Winged Tyranid Prime. So if you were to play this combat patrol or paint this combat patrol, there'd just be a lot more variety for you to mess around with. So it's definitely something you can go for. And the new sculpts are beautiful. I bought the starter box, so I have all of it. And the starter box was like $250, but it got you 2 armies and the new rulebook. But yeah, they're great looking. My favorite new unit from them is definitely the Psychophage. And you can see the Barbgaunts have this huge growth on them, and their one leg is kind of dug into it, and it allows them to shoot huge artillery bits. Where is he? There he is. There's the big lad. There is the Psychophage. That's just a fantastic unit all around. I love that model. Got the Ripper Swarms, all the fun stuff. And I don't think they've got the brandy new combat patrol yet for the Space Marines. So if we go to starter sets, oh, it's only $110? Yeah, you should definitely buy the starter set, because A, it's cheaper than the combat patrol, and B, it comes with 2 combat patrols. So this is the Space Marine one. It's the Terminator Captain. It's these guys called Infernus Marines with heavy flamethrowers. They've got a squad of 10 of those. It's the Terminator, the new Terminator kits that aren't quite so hunched over and small. There's 5 of those guys. Then, of course, you know, the Tyranids, who we just got through talking about. So yeah, if you buy the starter set, you're getting 2 combat patrols for less than the cost of the Tyranid combat patrol. So I would very strongly suggest you do that instead. So yeah, save some money, get more stuff to paint for less money. That, and if you have those 2 combat patrols, you can basically start up and play a game of 40k right then, because they have a version of the game called Combat Patrol, right? And it's very explicitly meant to be an easy on-ramp for players, because there's no longer any list building. There's no, do I have enough of XYZ units? It's whatever is in the box is your army. And that's all you need. You're not allowed to swap anything out. It's whatever that combat patrol is, that's your army. And it plays pretty well, too. I played a game of Combat Patrol. I'm a high school teacher, and I host a tabletop gaming club. And I played a game of Combat Patrol with a student who had only played like 1.5 games of 40k. And we were able to set up, play, and then finish a 5-turn game of Combat Patrol in less than an hour. So the game flows a whole lot faster than old 40k, and it plays very nicely. I was pleasantly surprised by how smoothly that game went. And the core rules to play are free online, so you don't even need to buy one of those big old rule books. You can just get the core rules and you'll be good to go. So hopefully that helps you with your shopping, because 40K is notoriously kind of weird to try and get into. And yeah, the Tyranids look fantastic. The brand new ones are absolutely gorgeous. Do you know what paint scheme you want to give them? Do you have any ideas how you want to paint them and what you want them to look like? Okay, I think that'll do. You're gonna have a vote on Twitter? Seems like a good idea to me. Give the people what they want. I ended up painting mine as a reference to Magic the Gathering. Do you play Magic at all? Do you know who the Phyrexians are? I think the next thing to do would be go up to it. Okay, well, give me a second. Check this out. Silver Nids would be fun. Well, I did mine as High Fleet Phyrexia. Oh, Sliver Nids. Yeah, Sliver Nids would be awesome. So I really liked the color contrast of like the new Elish Norn Phyrexian. So I was like, that'll be a really easy scheme to do. And check this out. This one I spent a lot more time working on. Look at the boy. Look at the boy. Right? Doesn't that look great? I even used some Blood for the Blood God texture paint to have like the bleedy arm. And one of my friends and I, it was really easy to do too, because I'm pretty sure you know how to dry brush, and that's kind of what I did. This entire thing was black, and then on the bottom part, I just kind of painted it red, like big block paint of red, and then a wash of purple, I think, and then I just dry brushed the red back over it. And up here, I just dry brushed it all gray, and then dry brushed it all white. So this was a really easy scheme to do. In fact, giving away a little bit of a secret, this thing right here, the arm, that actually has more detail and more like fine technique put into the shading on the arm than any other part of the model, which I think is really funny. But my friend plays Space Wolves, and so I had to... he plays Space Wolves and he plays Chaos Marines. And on his Chaos Marines, he has a bunch of Imperial Fist corpses. Because I play Imperial Fist, so now I've got to get him back. And so I have this thing devouring a Space Wolf arm. So yeah, it's really... this paint scheme was really easy, so hopefully whatever one that your audience votes on ends up being a real easy, but also a really fun-looking paint scheme for you guys. It went a whole lot quicker than I thought it would, too. I was really expecting the Tyranids, the Termagants, the little guys, to be absolutely freaking impossible and to take forever and feel awful. But they actually painted really quickly, because it turns out, when you have a ton of those models, the detail work on them just kind of becomes a non-issue. Like, your eyes stop searching for it. So even though I didn't do a phenomenal job painting them, they still look really good because they're blocked in really dynamic, really solid colors. So that was definitely a nice little boon, because I really didn't want to have to work on them for very long. But yeah, now I'm going to try and add some texture to this guy's cloak, because I've got the basic colors blocked in of, you know, the darker red and the highlight of the orange. But I kind of want to add some fabric-y texture to it, so I'm just going to use a very thin brush, in this case my Winsor & Newton size 1, and I'm going to add some just kind of like streaking on here. And hopefully this will give the raised parts a little texture that will kind of read as a fabric. That's the plan, at least. We'll see how successful I am shortly. Especially with the fact that orange does not clump well. Okay. But yeah, that's easily one of my favorite things about the Tyranids, which I had never painted until then, was that in general, because they've got so many like textured fleshy bits, that even without much work, you get a ton of detail out of the model. And any dry brushing you do just absolutely makes them pop. So you'll have that to look forward to when you finally get to painting them. And hopefully, you have a super enjoyable experience and they end up looking freaking awesome. Same thing here, just get some orange on here. Just with a little bit of... This isn't quite stippling, and it's not quite cross-hatching, because I'm not crossing it back over itself. I don't really remember what this technique is called. All I know is that it's going to help build towards a highlight that will look a lot more natural. But again, you need a good, thin brush to do this. Otherwise, it just kind of falls flat. There's a guy that I've been watching on YouTube now for a couple years named Don Serratos. And he has this amazing technique to me. And I'm pretty sure it's just muscle memory and, you know, extremely strong knowledge of light. But I'll see him do many, many layers of paint to slowly build up to a light color. But he'll have these very random looking just lines of paint on the model. And they look like they have no rhyme or reason as to where they've been put. But then he paints the next layer over it and does some really good glazing. And then suddenly it all makes sense. And it adds such a sense of texture depth to his minis that he paints. And I'm just in awe at the technique. And at some point I plan to learn it and hopefully get really good at it. But today is not quite that day. Today is the day I paint a beautiful cloak. Well, attempt to paint a beautiful cloak. And I think, actually, I'm going to have to paint the outer rim of this red as well. Once I finish painting the little trim on it gold. So yeah, like I said, I don't remember the name of the starter box, but get the starter box that's like $100. You'll get twice as many minis. You can even sell the Space Marines if you don't feel like painting them, but you'll at least spend $40 less than if you were to just buy the Combat Patrol. If I recall properly, the old Tyranid Combat Patrol came with 30 Gaunts, and then like 3 Tyranid Warriors and a leader unit, which doesn't lend itself to a whole lot of variety. So, that may not be the best place to go. Okay, now we're going to add some of this. It's a gold yellow because I don't have a regular yellow because I was just really trying to find approximations for the Imperial Fist color of Averland Sunset. So all I've got are these weird kind of warm yellows to work with, and we'll see what this does. It definitely attempts to be a warm yellow. I think what I'm going to have to do with this is thin it down with some pale sand to make it more of an icy yellow. And that should allow it to breathe a little more and look like a more natural highlight as opposed to this kind of mustard color I've got going on. But I suppose we'll see in a minute. But yeah, that Psychophage is not even my favorite model I've painted. It's really nice and looks detailed for what it is, but I have a special place in my heart for the Mortarion that I painted many years ago. Or a couple years ago, not many years ago, good lord. I've only been in this hobby for like 4 years. I keep going back to it because I keep wanting to improve it, but the sculpt is so good, and the mini is so good, that even with limited skill, I was able to churn out a pretty darn good Mortarion. And all of the additions I've been making to it have only made it better. I kind of wish I had done a better job basing it, but you know what? You do what you can. Have you seen the Mortarion mini? I kind of hesitate to call it a mini because the Mortarion is, he's like 8 inches tall. And he's got an incredible wingspan. But he is definitely a very cool-looking dude. And he's easily one of the coolest minis I think Games Workshop has put out. Okay. Actually, let's go ahead and do a purple wash over this, and then go back after doing the purple wash to re-highlight some of this before I do final highlight. So hopefully what this purple wash will do is it will kind of allow some of these colors to blend a little better, because they still look a little splotchy. And I'm going to try not to go too overboard with this, which is kind of a habit I have, where I just cake it on, and then it just ends up looking awful. But I really want to sell the shadow of this cloak, and the purple will help kind of dull down everything and really sell the crevices where the light can't quite hit it. There we go. And it will also kind of help unify my my highlights under this one color. And then once that dries, I can go back to it and I can hit it with my actual highlight that I was going to do. What I think I'm going to do now is get a good gold color and do the trim of the cape with the gold. So what do I want? Do this glorious gold, bright bronze? I want glorious gold. So what kind of paints do you guys use? What's your favorite paints? I've seen people who use Army Painter. I've seen Citadel. I've heard AK Interactive is really good, but I've never used them. I personally am a very big fan of Vallejo. I think Vallejo makes a tremendous paint line, and I've yet to be disappointed with one of their paints. Pretty much everything I've used today has been Vallejo, except for the washes, which I've been using Games Workshop washes. But that's because, in general, they're cheap and readily available. And unfortunately, trying to get washes from other companies in this area is a lot more difficult, so I have not bothered. And I think, especially because it's on a black background, this glorious gold is going to need more than one coat to really shine through. Because right now it looks very dull off of the black paint. I hope I didn't break you with that psychophage. Okay, so we're going to do that. And now we've got this wonderful gold trim that I'm going to have to be very careful with, because I am not going to use a Winsor & Newton brush to paint gold metallic paint. Very, very bad for the brush. Okay. Yeah, that definitely adds a lot more pop and zing to the guy, doesn't it? Okay. Go ahead and let that dry for a minute, which I think, yep, it's definitely done drying. That's what good, modest layering will do. There we go. And that looks pretty darn good. Now again, my biggest gripe about this is because some of the details are kind of muddy. Boundaries are a little bit blurred. I'm not getting a super clean look there. But that is A-okay. Actually, is that khaki still any good, or is it... Oh, no, that khaki... I suppose I can try and use it. Let's go ahead and hit the little scroll work on him. Try not to go too deep or heady with it, because I don't want to mess up the rest of this, but let's hit that scroll work. That's been emblazoned on his gauntlet. I think I'm going to use this guy as a replacement Captain and Terminator armor for my army, because he's just a good-looking mini. Okay. I don't need this no more, so that can go back down here out of the way. Now, though, I suppose I should go ahead and continue working on painting the border of this cape with the red, right? And just try my bestest to not hit any of the other trim, because I'm a dingus who decided to make life very difficult on himself. Okay, let's see what I've got. Let's see, can I do it? Can I do it? Apparently the answer's no, but I also am not going to screw it up so badly that it's super egregious. That looks okay. There we go. And so with a lot of this, you kind of got to do some weird placement of the brush so that you have a stable platform with which to do your brush strokes. I was doing like a reverse rifle grip for a second because of the stability that resting it on a part of your body gives. So like right now, you can see that I've got my fingers, my pinky braced against my thumb, and that actually does a remarkable job at giving you a steady hand to work off of. For anyone wondering why I keep changing the position of the mini and of my hands, it does a much better job of helping you stabilize what you're painting than if you just try and move the brush around the mini. And some of you probably already know that. Move the mini, not the brush. That way you can keep a very steady hand and only hit the spots you want to hit. Of course, until he wanders completely off camera, which is not helpful to anyone watching the stream. There we go. Now, I suppose I should go ahead and do kind of the same thing for this part of the cape as I did for the back, and do all sorts of crazy highlights and whatnot. I'm just gonna have to see how it looks and decide whether or not it's worth my time. I mean, the answer will probably be yes, to be completely honest. I want this mini to look really good. But we shall see. Speaking of, if you have not seen it yet, I must recommend to you guys to watch the Goobertown Hobbies Dave from Mini Wargaming one-page rules battle report. I unfortunately don't remember the name of the company that they worked with, but there's a company that has an articulated camera that they can program to move in specific paths. And I think last year or 2 years ago, they produced a video with their Warhammer minis, just kind of setting up like a diorama, and then having the camera run through certain paths to create very cinematic zoom-ins and pans. And via the sponsor One Page Rules, who makes a great model-agnostic Warhammer-esque mini game, Goobertown Hobbies, oh nuts, Goobertown Hobbies was able to fly down to, I want to say it was Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to actually play a game of One Page Rules with that camera recording footage. And the game is like an hour long, I believe, and it does not feel like an hour long. One Page Rules, first of all, plays real fast, which I greatly appreciate. But with the camera pans, with the really slick graphics, everything, it's an absolutely beautiful battle report. And it was an incredible joy to watch, and I can only hope that they're able to get more battle reports in that style. because unfortunately, as much as I love 40K, battle reports for it are not particularly fun to watch, unless they've been heavily edited a la 40K in 40 minutes. So hopefully, they can continue to use that program and that camera and technology to make engaging, exciting battle reports for everyone to watch. And that might bring more eyes onto the game. And as far as I'm concerned, with very few exceptions, more exposure is always a good thing for a hobby. Okay. Let's see if I can hit this again. Now, this actually ended up getting a really nice deep red color, which I think inadvertently goes really well with the red that was already established. So I think I can just go ahead and mix some of the orange with the red and slowly build up my highlights again. Good morning. Models arrived yesterday, Sagittar, Grimnir, and a champion. Oh my goodness, is it morning for you? You're not that far ahead of me. I know it's definitely not... It's like deep evening, I would figure. And congrats on getting all your Votann models. I just sold all my Votann models. Unfortunately, wasn't able to get as much money as I had hoped for them, but I'm not really complaining. They're making someone else happy, and they were just sitting collecting dust in a drawer for me. 1:31 a.m. Good granny. Yep, it's definitely morning for you. Well, I hope that you have fun assembling them and doing cool things with them, because the Votann sculpts are just absolutely fantastic. Right now, I personally am working on a proxy of Evander Garrius, who is a new Imperial Fist model from Forge World. So this is not the real deal. This is a 3D print. I love him to death. And I hope that I'm doing him enough justice that when I get the actual model, eventually, I can make him look even better. I will say, resin printing has definitely become a whole thing, and I'm having a heckin' good time doing it. So let's go ahead and continue working the highlights on this, because that has been by far the most difficult thing, is figuring out where all of the highlights would hit on this cloak. Though I think by and large it's turning out okay. There, we're going to go back to using the other brush, because I feel like it gets a better job of putting paint on the mini. Yeah, there we go. That's nice and buttery smooth. That's what I'm looking for. There we go. There we go. That's exactly what I wanted, but not like that. Don't want to get too much of that on that part. Just need 2 Sagittars, 3 Thunderkin, an Iron Master, and maybe another Land Fortress. How many points is all that going to be? I know they drastically reduced the points cost for a lot of the guys, and I got to see a winning list, and it looked like the list and names just kept going. They've done their best to make them semi-viable. And Auspex Tactics went ahead and put out a video where he collected like one successful army list from each faction, and it was really cool to see that there were successful army lists from each faction. They had to go at least 4-1 was his stipulation, and for every faction he was able to find at least one list that went 4-1 at some tournament since the points rebalance and the data slate. So that was definitely an encouraging thing to see. Admittedly, I'm not playing competitive, so I don't exactly have a huge concern about it, and I thought the game felt pretty good already. But just knowing that it's, the balance is the best it's been in a while is a huge positive as far as I'm concerned, because it means they're going to change it less. That's always been one of my big complaints about this game, is that I don't play competitive, so having to constantly read about these new changes and knowing that other people are going to be following these changes just becomes an annoyance, you know? But it's like, great. Now I gotta keep up with this. I gotta do homework on 40k. I don't want to do homework on 40k. You haven't a clue about the points or making a list? Fantastic. That's the way to play. Just collect the models you like. Have fun. Man, this thing turned out really good. This cloak actually turned out pretty darn good, too. Pretty okay with how you're looking, guy. Same thing here, just kind of... So are you just trying to make a really neat diorama, or do you just have things that you want to paint and these happen to be it? Yep, rule of cool. Fantastic. The right way to play 40k. I mean, I'm pretty sure when they first talked about the game, they mentioned that the entire thing was supposed to be like cool scenarios and story-based, as opposed to what's competitive, what's the best way for me to win. So that still feels appropriate. Not to denigrate anyone who does enjoy the competitive aspect, because that's its own puzzle to solve. I'm just not for it. There we go. I think. Let's go back over here and really try and create that highlight layer, so that I can kind of go back over the highlight layer, which seems to have gotten lost over here, with a smaller but very effective popping white layer. Okay, that'll do. That'll do. Okay, let's add some pale sand into this yellow. Make it almost an ice yellow, which hopefully will have a tremendous amount of... Oh man, yes, that will do. I don't know if you guys can see that. Once one of my mates is good at army building, I just get a variety, so I've got all bases covered. Sounds fair to me. I listen to a lot of news updates, and so I hear about what's good and what's not, but I don't like trying to follow it because that's a lot of money that I don't have. So I kind of build to whatever sounds fun or whatever flavor sounds the most interesting. And as a Fist fan, as a Fist player, that just means I try and get all the heaviest heckin' artillery and infantry I can, and then move forward while, you know, carpet bombing them. That's where I go. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't think I would have the patience nor stamina to actually participate in a 40k tournament. That just seems like so much time and effort. Yeah, that holy mackerel. I don't know if you can see that, but that adding that pale sand to this really brightened it up and gave it an incredible highlight color. And hopefully as it dries, it's not going to kind of rub off or become an issue. It doesn't look like that's going to be a problem. Fantastic. Aces, aces, aces. Now, over to this side. Wait, no, that needs to just be plain yellow. I don't think I hit any of that with a yellow. Either that or it just folded into it really nicely with the blending. The yellow pigment in this medium is not very strong. So we're going to do that. We're going to do that. And I think we're going to have to do that. There we go. That's definitely a little better. The GT I went to in Leeds was good. Learned the game whilst getting drunk. Fantastic. So what do you think of 10th edition? I know you've been playing for a lot longer than I have, and so you've had more exposure to the different editions. How did 10th feel to you? Because I know they streamlined the game a lot. And people have opinions. So I'm curious what yours is. I think I've talked about it on stream. I personally like the new edition a lot. I think it's a lot of fun to play. I love that it moves a whole lot faster. I kind of really appreciate the simplification of the data sheets, even though I know that rubs some people the wrong... You've not played 10th yet. Okay, fair enough. I'm a pretty big fan, but I'm also coming at it from someone whose first introduction was 9th, and 9th was just a colossal hassle. Okay, and I think it's not done yet, but we're getting closer. The next thing I need to do is paint that fist symbol. Right? And unfortunately, as previously mentioned, this is where the fact that this is 3D printed kind of becomes an issue. Because everything is very soft. All the details, all the boundaries on this are kind of not well established. So I've got to be super careful and try not to paint outside the circle. And then I guess when I go back over this, I gotta make sure to only paint the fist parts. Right now I'm using pale sand, which I think is coming through very brightly on the screen as like a white, but it's not a white. It's a very warm, gentle white, or off-white. Like a very light cream color. So I'm using that in hopes that it'll provide a much more solid base for an actual pure white to go on. Because right now it looks dirty as sin, because it's splotchy. Yeah, I definitely wish I could play more 40K. I definitely wish I could play more 10th edition, but I've only had a couple of opportunities. I think I've played maybe 6 games total, and each one has been increasingly enjoyable. The only problem I have with 10th is that, at the moment, is that they've made the models bigger so you can't fit more on the table. Yeah, that's kind of stupid on their part, right? I like the idea of true scale from someone who paints models, but from the perspective of playing the game, it's friggin' awful. I bought one of the army cases that they came out with many years ago, and I can't fit my Tyranid models in there because they're too freaking large. Like, they don't fit sideways, they don't fit upright, they don't fit any upside down, and it's just because the scale creep has been terrible for the game. One moment, please. I'm gonna use a hairdryer to dry off this paint. But yeah, that's definitely been by far the worst part of getting into Warhammer when I did, is I look at all of these smaller scale models, and I look at the original scale of the game pieces, and it's like, they're actually game pieces. They're small and portable, and can be put on it, and you can put a lot of them on the table. Now it's the scale and size of the battle seems to have gotten smaller, though that seems to be changing again, because with the points cost reductions basically across the board for most models, or most armies, you're getting that some of them are becoming horde armies without really meaning to. Like, the Death Guard is basically a horde army now, because Plague Marines and Terminators are the cheapest versions of those units. Moment again, please. I'm doing a very slow process where I'm doing many layers of this off-white, and hoping that it will be enough to cover up the black, so when I put an actual white on it, it doesn't look splotchy. That's the hope, at least. Okay, that ended up drying up nicely. Let's get an actual white on there. I do kind of wonder how, as a with only official Games Workshop product, how the heck is someone supposed to transport an Imperial Knight? They're really cool and I love them, but it just seems like the only way you can get that to or from a tournament is in a very large box. And that just seems ridiculously impractical to me. I think my base for my turnip boys is done. One thing I'm very excited about and a little frustrated about is that for Turnip 28, I am making an army based around the Grand Bombard, which is a huge mortar that for some reason an army has captured and has decided is theirs. So I 3D printed the base for the gun. The gun part just kind of came off on the printer bed, which sucks. But I needed somewhere between an 80 and a 120 millimeter base. So I printed out a 100 millimeter one, which I'm then going to make absolutely filthy, and I'm going to put the Grand Bombard right on it. And I've also got a bunch of Nurglings that I'm going to paint up to look like horrible, dirty children that are going to be the ones commandeering the Grand Bombard and firing it. And if everything works out, it's going to look like one of them is shitting right into the back of the cannon. And that is going to be what the artillery is, because that's funny to me. So I'll have to hope and pray that it works. Unfortunately, the actual cannon itself failed on the FEP. And I am out of resin. So I cannot print the poor thing, at least not for a little while longer, which sucks. But I guess, along with the loss of some funds, that's just encouraging me to finish other projects so I can really focus in on Turnip 28 once I get back to it. Okay. Let's see how badly I can screw up these fingers, because I'm so close to the model that even though I don't have my glasses in, I'm starting to see double. Okay, there we go. There we go. This is going to look what I will call acceptable. Finish painting the gauntlet part, the wrist guard of the gauntlet. And I think that's pretty good. That's about as good as it's gonna get. Now, that means I think I'm done with the cloak. Well, no, I'm not really done with the cloak. I suppose I could go back and do some dark brown and then transition up to a lighter brown on the inside. So I think that's what's gonna happen next. This is going to be interesting. I hope it ends up looking okay. We're going to mix some of the, I think this is just brown. Yeah, this flat brown. We're going to mix some of this flat brown in with some of the black. And that will hopefully allow us to get these nice little seams. These nice little shadows. And then from there, I'll be able to work my way back up to really pleasant pale sand. Now here's the part where I cry because I've accidentally ruined the model and the paint job. I was watching a battle report on Votan vs. Sisters, and the Votan player kit bashed the train. It looked god-awful, but he tried. There's rumor Games Workshop will be bringing that out. How that's going to fit on the table, I do not know. Yeah, I would love to see a train. Don't get me wrong. I wish that they leaned a little heavier into the old squat thing, and I understand why they're not. But it's probably going to be the size of like a foot-long sub sandwich. And good luck transporting that monstrosity, right? And I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm going to want to buy it because I am an obsessed consumer. But that just seems like such a hassle. And it's like, as much as I love him, the new Mortarion fits right into that bill too. He's a beautiful model, and he's a great display piece. but good lord, is he a mess to try and transport. And like the new Fulgrim for Horus Heresy. The winged Fulgrim is beautiful, but he's a nightmare to transport because he's got such spindly little wings. Uh-oh. What happened to everything? Okay, no, it's still there. Fantastic. So yeah, all I can say to that stuff is like, good luck, right? Hope it all works out. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to take some of the brown and we're going to flip the brown up like so. From the dark brown. Just going to do that and pray this is all going to look okay. I'm going to be really sad if I accidentally mess this up. Because there's a lot of this that needs to be recovered now that I've splotched on that huge block of dark brown. If there's anyone who can do it, it's me. So for those watching who are not used to seeing paint suddenly go from being so creamy smooth to so ugly, this is what painters lovingly refer to as the ugly phase. Eventually, with enough skill, patience, and prayer, I will be able to smooth out this very stark difference between the dark brown that you see there and the cream color I've got going on. Hopefully. We'll see if I'm able to make this work. Actually, let's let that dark brown travel out a little further. Let's let it travel a little further. I'm honestly stunned that the cream is showing through it. I suppose I just need to make more of the paint. And that way, it can be a much more solid pigment. There we go. There we go. I'll just let that dry for a second. Now you guys get to see Benry Paint sweat a little bit because he's pretty sure he screwed this up. But that's okay. What I probably should have done is painted the whole thing dark brown, and then where visibly possible, worked my way up to the cream color. Instead of this, where I have the cream color that I now have to blend everything back into. In fact, you know what? Screw it. I think I'm going to do that. I think we're going to go back over all this with the dark brown, and then I'm going to do everything in my power to try and build this back up to a cream color. So, goodbye. Goodbye. And hopefully, that will all work out okay. Because I feel like I'm making life harder by trying to preserve the old color, while still adding into the new. So we're just going to mix as much of this dark brown as possible, hit it with a couple of thin coats so that it gets this really nice, dark shadowy color. Try our damnedest not to screw up anything else that we've done. And then, work our way back up to a really nice highlight color. This will also allow us to reestablish some boundaries along the edge of the cloak. So let's give this a try. Wait, that's the back end of it. There we go. I just imagine anyone watching this who understands painting theory is watching what I'm doing, like Walter White from the car, and is just screaming at me for screwing that up. Okay, reestablish a clear border, like so, and beautiful. And what I can do is, once this one layer dries, I can go back over that and make it look real pretty. What I should do, since I use it so much, is I should actually just buy a dark friggin' brown. Because all I have done for a long time now is just mix it to varying degrees of success. Sometimes it looks great, sometimes it looks like trash, and it never is consistent. So maybe having a consistent dark brown that I just use constantly, and I use reliably, would look a whole lot better than whatever it is I'm doing right now. Okay. Mix that together. Yeah, that mixed lovely. Now let's see if it's even close to the same color. Yeah, that's actually pretty close. Let's hit some of that. Oh man, we want to make sure that this boundary is nice and clean. Steady hands, don't fail me now. They did not fail me, but it does look like I'm going to have to go over this multiple times. That's multiple enough. I am not going to screw up what ended up being a really good border because it's not perfect yet. I'm going to let that dry, and I'll come back to it in a minute. Okay, let's paint that. Can I hit this okay, or is this going to be a gap that I'm going to have to angle funky? I think that's going to have to be a gap I angle funky on. Once again, should have done the cape, not attached to him. Okay. And what this should do is allow me to create much more dynamic, much more interesting shadows, as opposed to trying to fight the way I was about 5 minutes ago. So now, the next part is to let all this dry, and then hit it again so I can cover up any inconsistencies in the coat. And I think something that'll help me with that is I've got a lot of little fine touch areas that I can't quite hit. So I need to go over them with the Winsor & Newton and do some precision painting. Like everything along here. Because that looks terrible. Thankfully, this is a very deep coat that will do a good job being kind of like a shade. There we go. That again. Beautiful. Mix a little bit more of this together because I'm starting to run out. That way we can get a much better shot here. Be a little bit down there. And yeah, it's ugly. Hopefully it'll be better once I get a second layer on this, because this is wildly inconsistent. There we go there. A little bit up top. There we go. And now, get some more brown, get some more black, mix that together. Now that the rest of the layer has dried, and put on a second layer to cover up the holes on the first layer. Because as you can probably see, it's splotchy, and we don't want splotch, we want it to be clean and creamy. Okay. Try not to use your hubris. Try and hit it all nice and precise. That'll work. I actually haven't looked at Evander Garrius's rules in the Heresy. one thing I think I saw when I was reading about him is that he has an ability that makes him better if Primarch Dorn is on the field in a different detachment, which I think is very strange, but I also don't know much about how, I guess it's called Age of Darkness, really works. So, I don't have any anticipations of playing as him in Horus Heresy, as much as I do just want to own the model and paint it because it's a very nice looking model. Everything about it just screams Imperial Fist at me. Okay, mix some more of this again. Oh man, there's a big hole in what I was looking at. Same thing, just kind of hitting all of this to make it more uniform a coat. And then from there, I can start lightening it up. Okay, I've got a section in here that looks like it was got, but wasn't. Oh, there it is. And I have no clue how I got back up in here other than by just being messy with it. So I'm not sure if I want to try and do that again. Maybe I used a severely wetted down version of it. That allowed it to run to that crevice. Because right now it's super noticeable, and I do not like it. I think that'll do. There, hit it back there. Okay. Now the next thing for me to do is to take a little bit of this pale sand and, okay, I would have done a wash of Agrax, then work from Xandria up. You're probably right. That probably would have made that a whole lot cleaner. But I'm trying to stay away from doing washes as best as I can. If only because I want to learn how to blend without washes, you know what I mean? So any chance I get to not use them is going to be taken. Like in this model, the only place I used a wash was on the leather right here and here, and then on the bear claws, because I just didn't like how not clean the lines were. So what I'm going to do now is I just added a little bit of pale sand into that like dark brown mix that I made, and I'm already liking how this looks better than what I was trying to do. But I will definitely, when I'm trying to make it look nice for a whole lot less effort on another model, I am definitely going to take your advice, because I think cream-colored cape linings are freaking awesome, and they really help a model pop. And I definitely don't want to do this over and over again. So in the next model, I'll go with like a pale color and then a wash, and then I'll just work my way up from that. With, I guess in this case it'll be a khaki, because I don't have Xandri dust anymore. That's not a color. I don't use as many Game Workshop colors, but I definitely get what you're saying. Okay, this one can do this, I think, while you work. Looks like you're working. There we go. And now he's got that highlight. And yeah, I've definitely mentioned this before on the channel while I've been doing this, but I definitely don't think I'm the end-all be-all of knowledge with this painting stuff. I barely know what I'm doing, and I'm making it up as I'm going. So, anyone watching, if you have any advice to give, please do. I love getting advice. I love trying new things. I do kind of get stuck in the way I do things, but if someone has some pointers that they can give to help me become better at this, I will gladly take it. A little bit more of this kind of gray now. Highlight. And again, knock that down. And what this will do also, this kind of just rapid streaking, is it'll create some nice texture in it. Thank you. In all seriousness, this brush is helping cover up my bad technique so much. it really is making life a whole lot easier on my end, because it just holds the right amount of paint. The strokes just end up looking really good. It's doing a lot of good stuff for me that requires very little effort on my part. I also think I've got some dumb luck with the amount of like water I've got in the brush too, because I'm not doing any active measuring. In terms of that infamous, like, knowing how to load the brush and whatnot, I have no clue. Okay, and so now, what I can do from here is, even though this doesn't look great right now, I can just keep building over it with coats of pale sand next, probably. And that should build this back up to a really nice cream khaki color. As opposed to trying and fight every individual, you know, roll and highlight. Just like in here. Okay. Add a little bit more brown to the black. Mix that so it's dark. Clean that off. Add a little bit more of the pale sand to that. Get yourself that nice highlighty color. Dull it down a little bit. It doesn't need to be that good yet. And let's see if I can hit this without creating any problems or mistakes. We're just going to take the streak and brush upward so that it fades from the roll in the cape into a much more concentrated top of the cape to really get that color selling. Or that color expression, whatever it's called. I don't know. I don't art. Okay. And yeah, again, that looks pretty darn good. Low skill, high luck. That's me. And that will eventually dry to the right color, so I can kind of clean this up here. And again, extend this up a little further, I think is what I want to do. I want this slight highlight to extend pretty high up the cape because there's a lot of visible light hitting it. And I can kind of slowly edge my way back so there's less of that. Work my way back down, and there we go. And so now I have these nice little highlights going on, and I don't really have to worry so much about mixing it back in. But what I think I'm going to do is add a little bit more pale sand into that kind of gray sludgy mix to make it brighter. And then I'm just going to do smaller streaks over that. And that will kind of act as the middle ground, the mid-tone of this highlight. Hopefully. Maybe. And then when I go all the way up to the pale sand, it will have this beautiful looking bright highlight in the center. Well, actually closer to the top, but you know what I mean. There we go. And let's see. Why is that all sludgy? That's not what I want. I want to do that with it. And over here, kind of the same thing. Where most of the light is, we want to have a nice bright color. So again, a little bit more pale sand into this to make it brighter. Play with that a bit. And just again, near the top, where most of the light is going to be exposed. At least I figured that's where most of the light would be exposed. All the way down the model. Probably in slightly tighter intervals than that. We're going to have that nice color show off. And we're going to do so all the way up here as well, because we want some definite visibility, some definite play in the very back of the model. And this was something I just found out from watching Zumikito Miniatures do his bit on how to do that. because he realized there was a really nice exposed piece of metal on the back of a Mini he was working on, and he figured that he wanted that piece to show up, if you know what I mean. So now we can go pretty bright here at the dead center point. And really play that up. And I think I probably could have gone a little bit brighter with a lot of this, but especially since this was my first attempt at highlighting the inside of a cape, because generally I do just kind of put a wash on it and call it a day, I think this is turning out okay. I think this could have gone considerably worse, all things considered. Okay. There we go. And again, I kind of want that texture to show up because I think it just looks good on the cape. Like, it adds a little bit more dimension. It adds a little bit more depth to the cape's, like, cloth feeling. So same thing here. We're just going to keep adding these little vertical stripes as we go along the edge of the cape. And that brings out where the brightest part of it is. And I think eventually what I'm going to do with this is I'll go all the way to white in certain spots to really show off the highest, lightest spots. Now, what I probably could have done is I could have expanded this out much further. I might actually go back and do that because it looks like there are huge gaps of black in there. So what I think I'm going to do is add some more of this back in. And just little bitty bobs. Maybe a little bit more of that. Yeah. Just little bits all the way up to where that is. Just little bits of overlap. Same thing down here, just little bits of overlap where it's clearly brighter than where it was prior. Same thing here, just little bits. And that should help brighten it up a bit. I can even add a little bit more white to it, off-white to it, and add a little bit stronger transition between the two. And yeah, that definitely adds a lot more character to that cape than it had. Back here, kind of probably want to do the same thing, because it goes from being very dark to very bright very suddenly. So let's add a little bit more of that transition between the darkest spot of the cape up to this really nice bright highlight color that I've got transitioning towards. There we go. Now, I think the last thing I want to do is just add a little smidgen of white in the middle to really hit as like the main area where the light is hitting it. Just little marks of white light. Little marks of white. Whoa, that was a bit too much, but that'll be fine since this is the very top of the cape. Let's see if I can get around it like so. Am I even still in focus? Yeah, I'm still in focus. Definitely has a much more painterly look than my normal style, but I kind of really dig how this looks. Same thing over here, just a little bit of white at the highest spots where most of the light would probably hit this. Need a little bit more light than that. That's not enough. And there, now you can see that there's this nice bright highlight right there. And same with this. I think this is probably going to be okay where it is. And there we go. Now we got this ridiculously overly detailed cape that I have done. Yep, there we go. Cape is done. Wow. He kind of puts the rest of the model to shame. Like, I spent way too long working on the cape, and now the rest of the model has this kind of very shy gradient that isn't doing much. That's perfectly fine. Man, this guy turned out pretty okay. So, now I suppose I should probably base him. Well, no, first I should go ahead and do that model. But I think I'm going to do that later. I've been streaming now for about 2 hours. I think that's a good place to call it, at least for me. So, thank you for joining me. I think you're the only one left, though. I think everyone else kind of dipped, and that's fine. I'm very tired, and I'm going to go ahead and probably head to bed really early for myself. So, thanks for being here. I do appreciate it. Have a great rest of your evening, and, well, I guess your early morning, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.